Saturday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Saturday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Saturday. Saturday, bring it on.
Dripping in gold? That's cool. Dripping in Velveeta's supremely creamy golden cheesiness? That's respect. Elevate your drip with Velveeta's range of outrageously delicious dips and dishes. Shells, cheese, melty blocks, and heat and eat queso that go all in on indulgence. Flex on your fam with a creamy, cheesy masterpiece and go all in on what you love with Velveeta. Respect the drip and satisfy your cravings. Bring home the drip with Velveeta.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Join us on this week's United Rugby Rewind as we look ahead to the first week of the URC season. We pick our games of the week and make our predictions on who's going to come out on top. And then we take a look at the predictions of where everyone's going to finish at the end of the season. Trust me, you're going to want to watch that one. Let's get on with it. You're listening to United Rugby Rewind. Hello and welcome to week one of the United Rugby Rewind. It has been a fantastic off-season. We've done all of our previews. This is it. This is going out on Wednesday morning, guys. So that's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We're 48 hours or no, 3 days. We're really, really close to kickoff now. I can feel it. I can taste it. Joining me this week to get ready for the season and review week one is Alan, Ben, and Kaylin. Good evening, gentlemen.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. Great to be here. I know we're now doing the ABC thing, and I'm now going to be last, but I'm going to have to put up with that because I'm not changing.
I was about to introduce you as the ABC of rugby, and I thought, it didn't actually hit in the head until after I'd said your names. But yeah, the ABC of rugby podcasts, Alan, Ben, and Kaylin. I'm impressed with that, boys. That's almost like that was a whole
written
selection.
in the stars. Yeah,
it is, man. It is. So this is the first of our normal kind of weekly pods. So I'll give everyone a rough idea of the outline of what we're going to do and how it's going to work. So obviously, each week there should be 8 games to review from the week before and preview for the week ahead. We just won't have the time or patience or sanity to do all of that. So what we'll do is we'll start off with any important news. We'll do a little news desk at the start. Then we'll review our game of the week from the week before. So we're each going to choose a home game. So just focus on a home game. So we'll have one home game as our game of the week. And then we'll kind of skirt over whatever other games there are. So there should be 4 other games that kind of just get a mention and a little 2 liner. And then we'll focus on the 4 key games that week. So we'll review last week's key games, predict next week's key games, and then hopefully we'll be able to just make sure we cover enough of the sides and all of that kind of stuff. So on the weeks when nobody's got any home games, so first week of the season, all the South African games have been bumped because of the Curry Cup. So Alan's got no home games to predict this week, so he gets the pleasure of minesweeping. So he gets to pick any of the games that are not home games, and he's going to focus on those. So that's the rough kind of format that we're going to work to, or we might just throw it all up in the air and let's just talk about the NFL. We might end up doing that as well. who knows? Stranger things have happened, gents. So let's start with a little bit of news desk this week, and this has been all over socials, and Christ knows what's going to happen to it between now and when this podcast comes out. So there was another story dragged up last week about the Welsh sides leaving the URC and joining the English Premiership. And then that came out one day, and then the next day it was, no, actually it's going to be more of a merger. It's going to be a Britain and Ireland league, and there's going to be no South Africa and Italy. And then a whole lot of other people put this stuff in and all of that kind of stuff. And it's all a load of crap. So let's start with you, Caelan. What have you made of it, mate? And what's your thoughts on it?
I'm going to be the gentleman here, and I'm going to let someone else go first. Now, the someone else is not with us. It is Hugh Griffin, associate producer and co-host, I suppose, or assistant producer and co-host. Great guy. He wanted me to read this out verbatim. He's probably taking the piss, but I'm going to do it anyway. He said, what we have seen in the last week is a public exchange of power in club rugby. The English clubs are holding crisis meetings and letting it be known they do not believe they can survive without foreign money. I agree on that. The URC are not seeking the English clubs. The English clubs are seeking Irish help. That is something I also agree with. He says, I think a merger will probably happen at some point, but I think any suggestion to kick out South Africans should be laughed out of the room. The internet is currently full of Kiwis who say getting rid of South Africa from Super Rugby was the biggest mistake they ever made. Now, Hugh, if you're listening and you didn't want that read out and you're being sarcastic, I'm sorry, I've already done it. But I completely agree. I think that is... I'm really getting the hands going here like a good politician, because this is the first time I got the chance to talk about this. Ultimately, I made this call last year when we did a similar podcast. I think the only way this deal happens is if the Irish clubs join forces with the English, and then we see who else goes from there. That's where the money is, be it TV money, travelling support, home support. That's where it is. I'm sorry, but it's not the case in Wales. We have no reason to believe that Cardiff against Newcastle or Cardiff against Leicester is going to move the bar. The Premiership TV contract is 36 million. The URC one is 63. To put that into context, the next top 14 deal is 137 million. And that includes Brody too, it should be said, and Federer 1. But that is what we're talking about here. When we talk about revenues, where is the money? There's money in France, there's money in Ireland, there's money in South Africa. It's not the same, but when it comes to a TV contract with a massive audience and hundreds of thousands watching every URC game, there's money there. We can't say the same about Wales. We can't say the same about Scotland. And if this happens, the only way I see it happening is if everyone comes to the table and everyone joins forces. That means the English in with the Scottish and the Irish and the South Africans and the Italians and the Welsh. Maybe an Anglo-Welsh league happens, but I'm telling you, that would be the biggest mistake Welsh rugby ever makes. Because who will take over as the power brokers? It would be the PRL. The same PRL that let 3 clubs go under. So if you want to get in bed with that, fair enough. I just don't think it's a good idea. Granted, it's easy for people to say, well, you're Irish, you wouldn't get it. I do get it. I understand rivalries. I understand that point. But ultimately, the game is in a state of financial ruin. You do not want to go in and deal with the English unless you are absolutely certain. I think the only way you have any certainty is by keeping Ireland and keeping South Africa on your side. And that's my 2 cents.
See, as the first bit of the show, that's cracking, that is. Yeah, we will go with that one.
Please do not put my email at the bottom of this show. Please, I have 2 million a week.
Again.
So, Alan, the prospect of South Africa being booted out of a big money Premiership deal?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because of our location, we find ourselves always at the. It's always a travel issue for us. Caelan's right though; it's a massive public, it's a massive audience. I'm sure if we left, I'm sure there would be something to be done with the New Zealanders again. But I think this league has done really well. It's gone from strength to strength. It's opened up a whole bunch of rivalries which are already beginning. The history of a league, of a rugby league, doesn't, it didn't matter for the English teams when those historical teams were, made bankrupt and disappeared. So I don't know why. You can talk all you want about the history, but we're in the process of making new history, rivalries, and I think the South African teams are perfectly happy here, and I know South African Rugby Union is as well. We've made each other stronger. I think it benefits us, and I think for the first time in a long time, I think the strength of the home unions doesn't lie with England. I mean, it's only been a couple of years that they basically turned down options to proceed with. So we find ourselves in this situation. South Africa is only going to get rights to vote and this kind of stuff at the end of the season. So we just have to wait and see what's set up until then. There's not really too much we can do about it.
Okay. So Ben, the prospect of playing Newcastle every now and again and Exeter, is that more interesting than playing the Bulls and Leinster?
No. I'm not.
That was short and sweet, wasn't it?
The thing that concerns me the most is that, like Caelan said, the Premiership is failing. I feel like it's failing. I think last season was the first thing I didn't bother even watching one of the Premiership games. I wasn't bothered about it, and I think my main concern is that the South African teams and particularly Italian teams get left on a limb if it was to go forward, because I don't think you can have all those teams in one league, because you might as well just have a European Cup every season and there'd be no other reason of having the European Cup. It would just merge into a URC European Heineken Cup Challenge Cup kind of quasi sort of pool tournament competition league, whatever you want to call it, and then it would just leave everyone to play off against the French teams at some point during the season.
I think we can agree European rugby is dead. As the European Cup died in 2014, as far as I'm concerned. I would if Munster make to a final in Cardiff, I would try my best to be there. But as far as I'm concerned, European rugby is gone. Maybe make an FA Cup style competition or something like that, but I don't know.
Well, they keep trying to float different pool proposals every year, don't they, to try and rejuvenate the competition? But I think, like you say, do we just make it a straight knockout? And then teams can focus on domestic competition, because 26 top 14 games, 18 URC games, probably enough without having an extra sort of 4 or 5 pool games and then whatever follows from that. I mean, the EPCR had this outrageous thing with a round of 16 with 2 legs over an aggregate score 2 seasons ago. Very quickly dumped it. Yeah, it looked a bit gimmicky and it might have been a bit sexy for some of the games where the games were close. There was the Harlequins game, I think, off the top of my head, which went down to the last 5 minutes, and there was a 5-point difference. The aggregate was 60, 66 or 60. I can't off the top of my head. That was quite good, but apart from that, it didn't really get the fans going, and you could see that, and it didn't return in last season. So I think the European format this needs to be some serious consideration about it. But I think, for me, the Premiership needs to find its feet first. I don't think they have much bargaining power. I don't think they have a strong negotiating arm on this. I think, like Caelan says, it would be up for the IRFU to swing in behind them. I just don't see it. I think the URC is far too successful. I don't think it needs tweaking. This is the 4th season in a row it's been in the same structure. There's been no need to change anything. The fixture system works. They have the gaps of the autumn internationals and the Six Nations and the European competition. It all seems to work rather well, and no one's criticising it from out with. And you can see it in the revenue figures. You can see it in the fan figures. You can see it in the viewing figures, and you can see it in the increased deal for the revenue for TV deals. So, no.
I do think, from a South African point of view, there is still adjusting to be done from our point of view with the actual calendar. Obviously, we're playing the championship at the moment. We're playing Argentina next weekend. So a lot of our players aren't going to be available in the US. So there is still a timing issue. But I think the main problem with the Heineken Cup was kind of, I've been watching it for quite a few years. They've started making the changes to the European Cup, as it was called at the time. We call it the Champions Cup now. But they're citing the travel as the main reason why it's not working, but I think there were issues before that. So from a South African point of view, the Currie Cup finishing is a nice build-up for us. But as we're going forward now, there is still a little bit of work to be done, but that doesn't mean by any means that the South Africans aren't willing to work on those issues to keep working with the URC.
I think the problem with the European Cup is not necessarily the Premier, sort of the Champions Cup, it's the Challenge Cup. You see a lot of teams playing teams from their own league because they run out of the ability to play novel fixtures. Edinburgh played Scarlets last year away and they played them at home. So you're not really playing anybody new there. And obviously they don't have to have the invitational sides of it. It's Cheetahs or the Georgian team off the top of my head, Black Lions, I think. So, yeah, so that's the only way for it to really be expansive enough to actually have different competition. Otherwise, it kind of loses its purpose. And I think it'd be interesting to see. I don't. Premier Sports snapped up that deal this year for not a lot of money. I don't think TNT didn't want to go anywhere near it. So there's obviously, there was no one else bidding with Premier Sports off the top of my head. Amazon Prime not that bothered. They're not bothered with the autumn tests anymore. Seem to have withdrawn from rugby. Sky Sports won't touch anything apart from the Lions tour. And Super Rugby, and obviously NRL, which is a different code, but that seems to be the three kind of main competitions they focus on. So, and the Rugby Championship, but I don't know. I think there needs to be a rethink of the calendar in terms of, do we actually need as many European games as that, and do we just go to maybe a mini pool where there's 2 or 3 teams in there as opposed to 5, and then going into a straight knockout, because at least teams can really plan their season ahead, because the URC is that trumps the European competition, I'd say, for almost every side, and then they want a strong finish. They want to be in that top 8. I don't think they really care too much about European rugby. The French teams do, because they've dominated it. The last 3 seasons they've won it. So I'd be interested to see what decisions reached. But I think it's time for probably an adults in the room conversation about what needs to happen. But I don't think a merger between the Premiership and the URC is the way forward.
And just a final point on that, so much the conversation the last couple of weeks has been last couple of days has been rivalries. What's the rivalry? It would be Bath Cardiff, it'll be Gloucester Bath, it'll be Exeter Scarlets, it'll be whoever. But the best rivalries in European rugby in recent years, Leinster, La Rochelle, they're not in the same country. Munster Toulouse have an age-old rivalry in Europe. Saracens and Clermont and Saracens and Toulon had excellent rivalries. Leinster had a great one with Clermont back in their heyday, not in the same country. The reason those rivalries formed was because they weren't playing each other the whole time. And I can assure you, if we go into a URC plus Premiership League, the rivalries won't necessarily be the ones you think of. Look at Munster Glasgow. That came because Glasgow came and Munster were coming down, and there was kind of a changing of the guard there. I can assure you it'll probably be something like Connacht against Bristol, for example. Connacht in the west of Ireland, Bristol in the west of England. It's not geographical. You'll see more things like, say, the Bulls and the Sharks. I can see that being a rivalry, the Bulls and the Sharks of the UK, because that's their brand of rugby. It's very similar to the Bulls. I can see that being a rivalry, for instance. And you see things like that. Realistically, we have to do what's best for the game at this turning point. The French have what's best for their game, 100%. Let them do their own thing, and if they want to join an FA Cup style European competition, absolutely, I'd be more than welcome to do that with them. But for Ireland, England, Scotland, Wales, Italy, and South Africa, I think the best thing is come to the table eventually, and I don't think it's this year. I don't. I think we need to give it a year or two, because the reason I think we need to give it a year or two is I don't want it to be rushed into. I don't want us to not be 100% sure where the URC is at before we do anything.
I think this is a panic move, though, because South Africa gets voting rights at the end of the season.
The
timing of this
they're scrambling. They're absolutely scrambling here. They know what the story is. There's a reason why the only stories leaked came from England. And it was the same way back last October, 11 months ago. They only came from England because they're the ones looking. If reports are to be believed, there's about 3 English clubs who are they mightn't go under, but they're not in a great financial position. I'm sure that's why they're looking over their shoulder. And absolutely, do your contingency plans. And as you said, they don't want South Africa. They don't want the trips. They're using that as an excuse, I think, frankly. I think if they were anyways realistically, they'd look at TV revenues, they'd look at standard of players and the standard of players that'll be in the league, and they'd say, do you know what, let's do it. And maybe get an airline as a sponsor. I don't care if it's Qatar. It might have to be done if you want rugby and this league to stay going, get sponsors on board. But I think they need to give it time. I don't think they can. I think if they rush into this, it'll crash and burn very, very badly.
It's interesting because the URC issued that statement, didn't they? I think it was on Friday, categorical denial, but there's that age-old idiom in politics, never believe anything until it's officially denied. So, sometimes a statement comes out and it doesn't always shut down the debate. It actually fans the flame. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any further development on that. But they seem to be pretty insistent that none of the clubs in the URC want to see anything change substantially at this stage.
Yeah, if I give you kind of the Welsh kind of side of it to round it up and finish it off, this just seems to get rolled out time after time after time. And yes, there are old boys that watch the game that are now quite high up in the admin side of the game. that used to watch Scarlets and Bristol, and the old Stradey Park used to be rammed full. The old Stradey Park was 9,000 people. It held 9,000 people. The new Parker Scarlets holds 15,000 people, can be extended to 16,500 people. And we put more people into Parker Scarlets for a Munster game, for certainly for the 2 Ospreys games, Cardiff games, all of that kind of stuff. We have a much bigger crowd for those games than we ever did, or we ever would, for the English sides. So that just completely blows that out the water. It's a lovely thought to have. Well done. Congratulations. You've got some great memories. That's not the way we go forward. For me, this is a battle of who's more important in the rugby world. From an admin point of view, this is a whole load of important people sitting there going, so Scottish Rugby Union's got a new chief exec. Welsh Rugby Union's got a chief exec been in place for 12 months. They need to do stuff. They need to be seen to do stuff. The English PRL changed leadership a couple of, I think 12, 18 months ago. They need to be seen to be doing stuff. And this just ticks a whole load of boxes. Oh, we're looking at this option, and it's a load of bollocks. For all the reasons that we've said already, but something will happen because the people up top need to look like they're doing something instead of doing what actually we need to do, which is concentrate on filling your home ground for your home fixtures. Don't worry about away supporters. Work on building your own supporter base. If Parker Scarlets, and I speak as a Scarlets fan, so if Parker Scarlets had 15,000 people in there every week, in the middle of winter, when it's bucketing down, it's a Friday night, it's an 8 o'clock kickoff, and it's zebra at home, yeah? But you put 15,000 people in that stadium, and it's absolutely bouncing, the TV revenue will come. And you have to focus on what you can control, and that is appealing to and building your home support. That's what clubs can do. That's where the focus needs to be. The unions need to focus on supporting the clubs to do that. And if they do that, everyone's happy, and the English can just bugger off and play with their own arses somewhere else, because it's none of our concern. If they want to, like you said already, guys, they're quite happy to sit there and see some of their biggest clubs go bust, rather than, in Wales, Dragons very nearly went bust. WRU stepped in to make sure that didn't happen. And all of the regions in Wales have had support at some point or another to make sure that didn't happen. We go into a PRL situation, that's gone. And that's the reality. You either support your club in the way it is now, or 5 years down the line, there is no club to support. We go in with the English, there is no club to support. It's every man for himself, and they don't care if a Welsh club goes bust. That's where it starts from, and then it kind of spreads out into all of those conversations that you've had. So I think it's...
Just to add a stat before, and I know Ben is going to love this one because Ben loves stats, in case anyone's coming to us for the first time. Spoke with James Harrington during the week, respected French rugby writer on Twitter. They reckon approximately 20% of revenue in the top 14 comes from their, 13 home matches. 20% from their home matches. Not the TV revenue, which is absolutely massive. Well, you know what I mean? That's obviously a huge chunk of it. 20%. And you know why that is? Because La Rochelle have gone about 70 games, selling them all out without necessarily getting a huge support from away. Toulouse, when do you see the Stade Arms for long? Empty. Bayonne, one of the best home grounds in Europe. Clermont, big stadium, maybe not selling out, was about 35,000? They're still getting about 15,000 into the gates every week. You wanted to throw that on the other side, you're not getting double figure thousands for Ospreys, Scarlets, and I'm not picking on you, and Lee, you know this, 25 minutes away.
Yeah.
It takes 2.5 hours to go from Ravenhill to Thomond Park, 3 hours, mate, probably 3 hours actually. And you'll get at least 15,000 at either fixture when they play. Do you know what I mean? Like we need to get our priorities in order, as I said already. Focus on within, focus on getting our own attendances up. I think that's where TV revenue is going to be massive. But if this league happens and they can get a blockbuster TV deal, then you get free to air as well. I think you try and do both. It's a very hard sell, but if you can try and get both and hopefully use that as the crutch to lean back on, that you have games on, say it's TNT and Premier, but it's also on S4C and RTE and BBC Alba, then you're going somewhere. You're going somewhere from there. But we're only going to go around the circles, but ultimately I completely agree. You have to look at within and go from there then.
Absolutely. So, see, I knew kicking off is what a week to kick off with that as your first news story. I mean, I got a feeling that one's going to come back a couple of times through the season, and it's all going to start with grumpy old Welshman like myself saying, "Oh, I want to do this." So, fantastic. Cheers for that, guys. Let's move on then to our game of the week. So, week one, we've only got games to look forward to. So just to remind everybody of the format, we're going to just look at our home fixtures. We're going to focus on one of those key fixtures and talk about that in detail and maybe make a couple of predictions. So, Caelan, you get to kick off, first of all, with your home game this week. So which of your home games are you picking as your game of the week this week?
It's an interpro, so I kind of have to take the one between Munster and Connacht. Ulster Glasgow is arguably a bigger fixture, but I'm going to be in Thomond Park, and I'm sure plenty of people will be as well. Just so people know, this one is on RTE2 for listeners in Ireland. It's on Premier Sports, and it's also on URC TV, which I know is not available in the UK, but is available here in Ireland, and it's on Super Sport, I can only assume as well.
Yeah.
Because they show everything. They'll probably show us a schools match that's played across the road. But this one for me, I'm not sure if it's the real game of the week. I think Ulster Glasgow might be, but this one is a really enthralling one because on paper you would look at that and say, yeah, Munster should win handy. You cite what they did last year, but there's going to be a Munster team without Tyke Byrne, a Munster team without Jack Crowley. Alex Nankivell has not played in the preseason due to suspension, so he's only coming back in. They'll have probably two new players in the back three. They'll have no Peter O'Mahony in there. Jean Klein, Tom Ahern, their fitness could be confirmed by the time this goes up, and it probably will be because they're doing a press conference on Tuesday. They're touch and go. They're two massive players. Ollie Jaeger, we don't know. This really levels the field. Whereas on the other side, Connacht will have Keelan Blade back. He was their captain last year. He's a massive player for them. For me, and I was going to try and keep this short and sweet, and then I forgot to put that joke in there and just forget it. For me, where this game is going to come down to, and it sounds cliched, is going to be at source and at the breakdown. The reason for that is Connacht are a team who try and milk penalties. They will not go 10 phases, 11 phases consistently. I think their attack is actually quite blunt, if I'm being honest. It's probably something you hear me say a lot this season. They're going to try and look to the breakdown, get into a scrap, get those cheap penalties, make you go off your feet, bait you into coming in from the side, things like that. So that, for me, is a massive factor here. Munster, on the other hand, what we need to see, and we've talked about it in the preview, we need to see urgency, we need to see efficiency, we need to see a potency. Munster's defence was good, had some issues in pre-season. The only caveat there is it had issues when they had two players who weren't in position in the centre, and then when they swapped them out, it was a lot better. So I give that the benefit of the doubt here. But in attack, Billy Burns is going to be a 10, hopefully. Hopefully he doesn't get injured by the time this goes up or by the time the game happens. So a new 10 is in there. They're going to have a new 13 in there because it's more than likely going to be Tom Farrell, who they signed from Connacht. 15, where they usually focus on having an extra playmaker, is going to be different, more than likely. Mike Haley might start there. I don't think he will, so we're probably looking at either Shane Daly or Takir Abrahams, as being 15 and being that little pivot out wide. So I think there's a few interesting battles. If I was to, we don't have team sheets, so I can't go into it from that perspective. I do think if anyone's watching, focus on the breakdown here. Focus on how Connacht try and navigate that. They really struggled to slow Munster down last year, and we did start to see in that game. Once Munster got on top in the physical stakes, they were just making yards consistently. It was Nankerville, it was Calvin Nash, another player who won't be available for this game. Is that going to be a factor? I think it's a one-score game. I really do. I think this is the hallmarks of a typical gnarly Interpro. I will back Munster, and I'll probably back Munster most times when they come up this year, as I'm sure you will do for your own teams as well. And that's the fun of why we do things like this. But I think Connacht have a huge opportunity here. I also think we need to see a response from Connacht, because how they ended last season was frankly not acceptable. Their own fans will say that. Their own players will say that. We need to see a spark from them in attack. They have a new 10 in there as well, and Joshua Ioane, should he start? It looks like he will, because he started the last 2 preseason games. They'll have Mac Hansen back. He's going to be a massive factor. Like, he's Mac Hansen. Need we say any more? Talked in depth about him as well. I'm going to say Munster to win this. I'm not massively confident. I think this is a banana skin game, but we've spoken so much before about the importance of a fast start. Munster have Connacht, Ospreys, they have Leinster, they have the Stormers, and they have the Sharks and the Lions in their first 7 games. They also have Zebra. That is as tough as a start as anyone has. Win this, get out of Dodge, go on to Parma, get your win, and then you're on to the Ospreys at home, and you've got a little bit of momentum. Don't win here, and it's an entirely different conversation. So, massive game for both sides. Going to go with Munster, but I think I've talked it into being a game of the week, even though I think Ulster Glasgow is. So I think that's a good sign. URC equals best league. Isn't that
it? Okay, so give us an actual prediction then. Are you going to go by plus how many points, or are you going to give us an actual score?
I won't go actual score. I'd say Munster by 7. I still think, despite the players that they're going to be without, you'll still have a couple of combinations that'll split you there. Like, if they can get Sean Payne and Tom Ahern fit for this game, even if we can get one of them fit for this game, changes the picture. You'll still have Cadellin, Hodnett, Coombs available in that back row along with Jack O'Donoghue. More than likely, obviously, again, we're recording too early in advance to be certain. They'll have Jeremy Barron and Niall Scannell, their 1-2 punch and hooker. They'll probably have Craig Casey back, or so I'm hearing, alongside Billy Burns. Not a bad partnership. They'll have some teething problems. Alex Nankerville and Tom Farrell is a centre partnership I'm excited to see. So I'm going to go with Munster, but I do expect it to be janky at times. I've seen that in pre-season. We've seen it from Munster when there's a break in the season as well, because their game is minutes just seems to be massive on their game plan. You know, it's a very cohesive game plan. It just seems to come together the more games they play. I'm going to go Munster by 7. I'd say the bookies will have it in around something like that, so I say I won't be too far off. But I would not be surprised if it goes the other way as well, because Connacht, if there's one thing you can rely on, it's them raising their game for an Interpro.
Cool. Okay. So if you agree or disagree with Caelan, you can play on our prediction table chart thingamajig that we've got. The details of that are on the socials, and we're going to play along as well on the socials, and we'll just share it on socials, because if we talk about it on a Christ, we'll never get to bed. So so Alan, there's no South African games this week, so you have the pleasure of minesweeping, and you've chosen Ulster and Glasgow as your game of the week. So talk us through what you're expecting Ulster and Glasgow.
Okay, so that probably is the game of the week, I think, from an Irish perspective. 2 teams which are desperate to make a point. Ulster will want to prove that they can make that jump and start winning the big games against the big teams. And Glasgow, who've obviously won it last season, and want to make a point that they can maintain this streak and keep it up. The interesting thing about this game is the following games, what happens afterwards. So let's say if Glasgow were to lose, which I'm going to say they're probably going to win. I think if Glasgow lose, they've got a few games afterwards where they're able to pick up some momentum again. So they got Benetton. I think they go away to Cardiff, and then they're playing Zebra. And then they after those games, then they should if they should win those games. If Ulster lose, they have to go to South Africa in week 2 and 3. So it's going to be a lot tougher for Ulster to pick up momentum. So I do think it's a massive game for both these teams, just to make a point and to make a statement. We all know how important the actual momentum is going to be. I think both these teams are relatively settled. I think they both know how to play. They're both very good teams, and I am thinking that they're probably both going to be, pretty consistent throughout the season. But it does. You are playing the champions from last season, and they both didn't have brilliant pre-seasons either. And Ulster are playing at home, so I wouldn't be entirely surprised if Ulster were to win. But I just look at the fixtures which are coming up afterwards, and I just think that Glasgow, by the end of these first 5 weeks, are going to be ahead of Ulster, and they would have picked up quite a bit of momentum going into the second 2/3 of the season. So I'm going to go Glasgow Warriors, and I'm going to say by about within 7 points.
Glasgow by 7.
I'm going to raise the challenge flag. I have picked Ulster on the Super Brew, and if anyone wants to go in there and agree with me or agree with Alan, there you go. Got to get those plugs in early and often. But
I love the fact. I love the fact that you're going, come on then, someone come and disagree with me. Come on, let's have you. Come and disagree with me.
I'm just standing up for Alan. Come and disagree with me. Don't disagree with Alan.
No, disagree with me. I'm a neutral. It doesn't matter to me either way.
Yeah, but I hate Glasgow and I have a soft spot for Ulster, so am I really neutral? I don't think so.
I
don't hate them for legal reasons. I don't actually hate them.
To be fair, Ulster are my favourite Irish teams. I always like the jerseys. I like the way they play. I am a fan of Ulster. Out of all of the Irish teams, they're the ones I like the most. And then I do probably prefer Edinburgh over the Glasgow Warriors, but there's a South African connection there as well. So the way Glasgow play, I'm hoping that they can, get the win, and Ulster will just have to do well in the next games. There you go.
Cool. Okay, well, I think that game is on Premier Sports as well. I can't see it as listed on a free-to-air.
It's just Premier Sports, yeah.
It's just Premier Sports, yeah. Okie dokie. Ben, you're up next, mate. So you've got 2 home games to choose from. You've got Edinburgh, Leinster, Benetton, Scarlet. So which one are you going to give us a rundown on, and which one is your game of the week?
So Benetton Scarlets, I'll go first because obviously I'm going to focus on Edinburgh Leinster, but I think Benetton comfortable winners at home, and I think they're going to be and win by at least 14. I think.
Get out of here, man! Get out of here.
Scarlets didn't travel well last year, and I know we talked about in the previous pod, but that Benetton backline is incredibly strong, and if they carry on the way they played towards the end of last season, then they're just going to be very difficult to beat at home. I think they only lost 1 home game last season, and that was at home to Glasgow. They drew in Munster, and every other game was a home win, and quite a comfortable home win off the top of my head. So very, very difficult place to go. Pretty feverish support. Everything's going in the right direction for them. I, pretty much agree entirely with what Caelan said on the previous cast about their strength and depth and where they're going, and I think they will finish top 8 quite comfortably. And I think Scarlets will just be a routine home win by at least 14.
Okie dokie, I'm going to recover while you give us an in-depth on Edinburgh Leinster.
So there's a couple of things that go in Edinburgh's favour, because Leinster, we haven't beaten them. I don't know how many seasons it's been. It's been a little while. It's a Friday night game. It's the opening game of the season, and we don't know exactly what form the Leinster squad is going to take. Edinburgh have come out that pre-season friendly against Gloucester with 2 very good 15s. Both 15s performed. The strength and depth. I think I don't know who's going to start at 10. I think it's a toss-up between Healy and Thompson at the moment. I'm not sure who's going to start there. And if the centre pairing, if it's Tupolotto and Matt Scott over Curry, Lang or Bennett, I think it'll be interesting to see how dynamic that goes. And then with the back 3 of Houston, Van der Merwe and Darcy Graham, I'd be fully expecting of at least a losing bonus point win. I think we've got the ability to score 4 tries through that side. I just think Leinster just can seem to be able to get a win no matter what side they put out. And I think that's the worry, is that they will just eke out a win much as they do. And they're not always fully clicking all their, they've got their full first 15 out. So I'm going to say Leinster by 4 through slightly gritted teeth. The problem is, and very similar to Ulster, we've got an incredibly difficult tour to South Africa. We've got at altitude in Pretoria and Joburg 2 successive weeks against the Lions and the Bulls. I don't know what to make of that, and it could easily be 0 from 3 if we don't turn it on against Leinster on Friday. But I'm hopeful. My heart says we're going to win. The head says that Leinster are going to win, and then we're going to struggle in South Africa. But we'll see. I think it'll be bouncing. I think now Edinburgh have got their own stadium at the Hive, or I think it's called the Hive now, isn't it? They've had a couple of goes with different names for sponsorship reasons. I think it is the Hive now. I'll stick to that unless I'm corrected. There is a pretty feeling support there.
It's down as the Hive on Super Brew anyway. So.
Yeah, it is the Hive. Yeah, I think it was the Damn Health a couple of years ago. The only issue with the stadium is, I don't know if any of you lads have had the pleasure of going there, is that the stadium is a really bad structure. So you go and sit there, and it's got metal rods, a bit like a marquee tent when you go to the show jumping or equestrian or someone's wedding. If you had the pleasure to do that over the summer, and your view is somewhat obstructed by it, and it's really
Sorry, which stadium is this?
So this is Edinburgh's home stadium. So the way they built it, I don't think they put an awful lot of thought into the style and the structure of it. But wherever you're sitting, they've got metal rods about 15 to 20 meters apart. So your view will always be slightly obscured by a metal rod, a vertical frame that's running from the top of the stand down to the ground. And it's really off-putting. I went with my dad a couple of years ago to the home pre-season run against Connacht, and it's the only time I've managed to go there. Obviously, living in London, it's so far away, and the best way for me to see Edinburgh is the away games or European games. And it was really off-putting, really off-putting. And I think that does have an impact on atmosphere, as if people are constantly looking to the left or looking to their right, to see what's going on. It can be very, very difficult. And there are some really bad seats in that stadium. You can be on the front row and you can see very, very little. So that's
it's also the worst ground to watch a game on TV. And it's not the aesthetic. It's the fact that the camera is so high and looking straight down, because they can't go behind the stand, and
it would get blocked. Yeah, exactly. So
it's disorientating.
And it is an issue, but that's more kind of just a personal preference thing. But I think people want to be able to watch rugby from the right angle, and if you're paying good money for a season ticket, home tickets for Edinburgh are not cheap. It's 40 quid a ticket for category 1 to sit on the sideline. Yeah, I think it's quite pricey. SIU obviously wanting to get their money back for the investment into the stadium, but it's not a cheap place to go. And the pre-season friendly was 40 quid as well, so they didn't even offer a discount on that. So it's expensive, and I don't think you always get the best value for money going to a home game there. But I'll die on that hill. I just don't think it's the best stadium. It's probably the worst
on Leinster for a second, because you mentioned the 10 situation, Healy against Thompson. Whether we actually see a battle unfold is for something down the line, but that's going to be the talking point here in Ireland for the next 10 years, possibly, in the post-Johnny Sexton world, is who's going to be 10 for Leinster. They're all fit. They're all available. I think Kieran Frawley will be on stand-down because he went on the South African tour, and his heroics were obviously unbelievable. But Ross Byrne is their man. There's no reason to suggest Ross Byrne isn't their man unless you think now Leinster are going to make the change. Harry Byrne is there. It looked like he might move in the summer. He didn't. Will he get a run out? Sam Prendergast, he's the golden child. He's the one that people think will be the heir to the throne. There's people are already saying it's Frawley against Prendergast as opposed to Crowley and in the Ireland shirt, which is madness. But I won't get into that. But it's a really interesting dynamic. Leinster will have some key players there. They'll have the likes of Jack Conan available. Some of their backs, Jameson Gibson Park could feature, probably a few weeks too soon, but he could feature. Jim O'Brien is likely to feature in the backline as well. Still have a couple of key players in there. I do think, though, similar to Edinburgh, and we talked about how Edinburgh are under a bit of pressure. Leinster are under the most amount of pressure in the league this season, and we have spoken about it before. They have to do the double. And imagine saying that any team has to do the double, because it's something that, it didn't happen until about 2014 or something like that it was never done before. But they have to. They have to win the URC this season. I can see them going to Edinburgh and getting a big win and doing what they normally do, getting into the groove up until November time and really starting to show their work then. But this is a moment where if Edinburgh get a result similar to last year, then the questions get asked. Questions get asked at 10. I think questions will come up at 9. I think Cormac Foley is ready to jump ahead of Luke McGrath. I think we'll see questions at prop, whether they go with Jack Boyle or Michael Milne as possibly leaping ahead of Cian Healy, who is one of my favourite ever Irish players, but he is pushing on now at this stage. Second row is massive, though. And this is the other one I want to get into. They've lost Ross Maloney, who was a consistent 18 to 20 game a season guy. They've replaced him with Jorge Snyman, who was not that. They don't really have second rows coming through the ranks in between. You know, they've got a few in the academy. So we're likely to see Brian Deeney and Conor O'Tiernig. If you see that name written down, refer to me. I'll tell you how to pronounce it. It is a pain when you read it if you don't speak Irish. But the second row is massive. And I think Edinburgh could get at Leinster at line-out time, because Leinster's line-out is good when the first team are there. It's not as good when the first team aren't there. I still think Leinster win, but I think there is room to think that Edinburgh could cause a scare, and I would not be surprised if Edinburgh get a bonus point out of this game. I really wouldn't.
Okay. So Ben's going for Leinster by 4 on that one, just to remind everyone. So your options on Friday night viewing, okay, are Edinburgh, Leinster, or Cardiff and Zebra. Now, you'd look at that normally and you'd go, okay, yeah, Edinburgh, Leinster is the game to watch on there. But I'm going to throw something in different here, okay? So Cardiff, Zebra, it's probably the more interesting game, simply because both of those sides have really got a point to prove now, yeah? They're not got a point to prove about, can I do the double? You know, am I amazing? Look at me. Look at my lovely tan and all of that. None of that, yeah? This is about the blood and guts of it. They're both trying to play an expansive game. And I think from a neutral's point of view, if you've got a choice between those two, have that one on. Because that for me could be an absolute belter of a game. It's going to be one of those games where there's going to be 4 tries each, and then there might be a kick, a drop goal in the last 5 minutes that decides who wins and all of that kind of stuff. It's going to be a belter of a game. So if you've got the opportunity to, that's the game on the Friday night. My game of the week, however, is Dragons and Ospreys, simply because it is local derby. And the key bit with this, okay, is it's in Rodney Parade. Yeah, it's at Dragons home pitch. And the Ospreys cannot stand going to Rodney Parade. Rodney Parade is like an old traditional ground. It's not, you're all singing, all dancing. There's no fancy seats. There's no seat warmers and all of this kind of stuff. There's no waitresses bringing you beer at halftime and all of that rubbish. It's a proper old place to go, and it's because it's so tight, because it's so compact. The fans, and I think it's only got a capacity of like about 8,000 and 9,000, but the fans absolutely make it rattle. And Ospreys hate going there. Ospreys can't stand playing there. They've lost there a couple of times, and for all the reputation about, you know, we've got a big forward pack and this, that, and the other, this could be their biggest banana skin of the whole season. And I say that because it's the first game of the season, and if you start with a banana skin, if the Ospreys don't win this game and the Dragons do, Dragons are off to a flyer. And like we've spoken about loads of times, getting momentum is so key to this league. So both sides are going to be fully loaded. Everyone's coming with everything, yeah. If the players are fit, they're on the pitch. Jack Morgan is back. Ospreys are fully loaded. But I still think this is one for the Dragons. I think the Dragons are going to come out and show what they've been missing. They haven't had a great, in terms of results, their pre-season hasn't been great. There's still some work to do on defence, but their defence is massively improved from where it was last season already. You can see that in their home games, and the home support is absolutely responding to that. So the Dragons get 8,500 people into that stadium on Saturday afternoon. It's 3 o'clock. They fill it and they absolutely rattle the place. And every time an Ospreys player comes near the ball, they give them an overload of abuse, and it will get to them because it's got to them before and it will get to them again. So for me, this is, you know, there are rivalries in Welsh rugby, the Scarlets, Ospreys, Dragons and Cardiff, but just because this is the first game of the season, this is huge in Welsh rugby. This is a massive game. Both sides Everybody's coming, and it's going to be an absolute belter. I'm going to go Dragons by 2 on this one. It's going to be close, and I'm going to go Dragons by 2. And yeah, there's going to be Ospreys fans spitting feathers all over the place, but Ospreys fans know perfectly well that every time they go there, they hate the place because Dragons supporters get under their skin. They're a sensitive bunch in Swansea. They don't like it when they haven't got their moisturizer and they haven't got their feather boas and all of this kind of stuff. And they got to go to the old town and they got to live like, dogs for an hour. But that's what the Dragons do. And the Dragons will get into them. They will compete with them up front. The Ospreys are not used to sides competing with them up front in the way that the Dragons do. They'll rattle them. There'll be punches thrown. There'll be the odd possible verbal insult thrown maybe back and forth, but the Dragons will rattle them. And if they rattle them, they will come out on top. If they don't get into them, if they just let the Ospreys play, then they can expect to come out without even a bonus point. But if they do what the Dragons do best and make it a dirty, horrible, stinking match, they will come out on top because they play that kind of rugby better than the Ospreys do. And that's what did I say here? Dragons by 2. Yeah, Dragons by 2. Yeah.
This was very, very straightforward in picking games. I can't believe it. Like, we literally just went through. Okay, I disagreed with Alan about Ulster, but I'm going to have an Ulster cap on basically by the end of the season. But we just moved through seamlessly. I can't wait until it's, Edinburgh against Munster and Lions against Scarlets, and we're at each other's throats and no, you're going to lose and you're going to lose. That's when the real fun starts.
Well, I've been through the fixture list and I think we've got about 5 or 6 actual 2 of us against each other through the season. There isn't that many games where we play each other through the season this year. So, and there isn't a single week where all of us are playing each other. So it's going to be interesting. Yeah, but it's good. It's good.
Semi-finals weekend. Now, that would be brilliant.
Yeah, I'll be sitting there and go, see, told you this is where we needed to be. Yeah, right.
I send them to hand us the trophy already, I suppose.
Okay, so just a quick reminder, if you are liking what you are hearing then or watching indeed, please give us a like and a subscribe on YouTube. It makes a massive difference to what we're doing, and you get to see all the other stuff that we're doing in all the other places because it's all fantastic and amazing and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, do join us for that. So our next bit, gents, now this is experimental, okay? So bear with me for just a second while I try and share something on a screen. Right, hang on. Hang fire.
Almost there.
Almost there.
This is great for the audio.
Right, there, and then.
Voila.
Ready.
My God, it worked. It hasn't yet. There we go.
There we go.
For the audio listeners, Hugh has pulled up, or sorry, not Hugh, Lee. Sorry, Lee.
Hugh's about 20 years younger than me, mate. I'll go with that any day of the week.
He has pulled up a slideshow, and we're going to show our predictions. And come the month of May, some of us are going to look very, very stupid.
Lee will be looking very stupid.
I disagree with you on that, Jeff. So we're going to start with you. This is last season's table. Okay, this is where we finished in the table. So we're not going to deal or worry with what comes after the fun bits, the prettying around, and basically because I didn't have enough time to do the logos. Okay, so we're just going to go with this as it is at the minute. So that's where we started, and when you look at that table, you kind of go, yeah, okay, that's a fair reflection of last season's league. So let's have a little look at Caelan's predictions. So Caelan, take us.
I'll start at the bottom. Zebra, I love you. You're 16th. Dragons, Scarlets, and Cardiff, 15th, 14th, 13th in that order. Listen, I know my audience. And I hope they're all Ospreys fans, otherwise I'm absolutely fucked. I also did this over on TikTok as well, and oh no, I haven't posted yet actually. Come to think of it. I think that's why I didn't get any traction. I have the Sharks in 12th. I don't really believe in them. I've said this before. Lions are in 11th. Alan, we'll see. We'll see.
Curry Cup champions.
I mean, that's it. We'll see. We've got Connacht in 10th, as I said there last week before last. I don't know. All these pods run into each other. Ospreys in 9th. I've them fallen out. And Ben, you can do your victory lap. I have you in 8th place. You won't be there in every one of these predictions. So I have you in 8th. Bennett in 7th, which I said on Monday's show. I've Glasgow in 6th, which is probably one of the lowest of any of us. I look forward to seeing how they manage in their first season as champions. Ulster 5th. I'm behind the Red Hand this year. I've got the Bulls 4th and Stormers 3rd, which was obviously a topic of consternation when we did South Africa. Munster in 2nd, Leinster 1st, but as we all know, no team has ever finished top of the URC and gone on to win it. So hopefully that trend continues.
I mean, yeah, putting that many Welsh sides down the bottom, mate, is just, I think people are underestimating where Welsh sides are at the minute. And I think I'm going to get to the end of the season and I'm going to enjoy the podcast where we pull all of these out and I go, right, okay, here we go.
Can't be any worse than what I said about the Premiership. So
as if you're not in hiding with all the death threats from English rugby supporters of that.
All 12 Saracens fans.
Right, let's have a little look at Alan. So Alan, this is your table. I mean, you've got Dragons at the bottom, mate. So
yeah, I do, don't I? Yeah, so I got the Dragons at the bottom, then Zebra, Scarlets, Cardiff, Connacht, Ospreys, Lions, and then Benetton. So I don't think there's too many surprises there. Maybe Connacht is a little bit low, according to some people. Maybe Ospreys are a little bit low. I've got Ulster in 8th, Edinburgh 7th, and then the Sharks, I think, are going to be the big climbers this year. Khaleesi's going to want to make a point. Eben Etzebeth's going to want to make a point. They're also in the final of the Curry Cup, so they've got momentum behind them. Then the Stormers, then Glasgow. 3rd is Munster, and then 2nd is Bulls, and 1st is Leinster. So I'm hoping for a couple of big moves from the South African teams this year.
So it's interesting that you've got Leinster on top as well. But
yeah,
the bit for me is where you've put your own team down in 10th, man. I mean, yeah. That must kill you having to put them down there.
The thing is, I've been supporting the Lions for long enough not to be, the realism always kicks in. I think one of my South African predictions said that New Zealand were going to win as well. So I do have this element about me. So what I think is going to happen, I think the money that the Sharks have, they've bought a couple of our players, the Stormers and the Bulls. And then I think Ulster and Edinburgh are just good enough to pip them, really. So I think Benetton, Ospreys, and Connacht are kind of where the Lions are at. I just think there's a lot of other teams that have made big moves to improve, and I think that's going to tell it come the end of the season. Obviously, I'm hoping that the Lions will get into the top 8 and travel to Leinster and play them there.
That's a weird thing to hope for. I hope you get pasted on the first week of the playoffs. Okay. Let's have a look at Ben's. So Ben, again, Leinster on top and Zebra on the bottom. So take us everything in between.
Yeah, there's not much to shout about here. I think some teams will climb slightly and some teams will sit where they were, and I think the bottom 2 will stay the same and the top 4 will stay largely the same as last season. I'm not sure if anyone's going to break that top 4. I think Edinburgh have to climb from 11th to 6th. I think that's the biggest jump I've gone in, and I know that's probably me being slightly biased, but there's a lot in that Edinburgh side that should improve on the league position last year as we score more tries and secure a few more bonus point wins from the try perspective. But I think the top 8 is a pretty sound top 8. I think the Sharks won't jump as high as they are. I think the Welsh teams, none of them will be in the top 8 next season. I can't see it.
I can't believe Lee wasted all his energy giving out about where I put the Welsh teams and then just proceeded to have all of you guys put 3 of the Welsh teams the bottom 4 as well.
I could have just copied and pasted the whole league, couldn't I? And just gone, there you go. That's what everybody else does. So my question for you then, Ben, it's really Benetton, where, you know, and this kind of goes back to what we were saying in the Irish, the Scotalia review. You know, are they capable of kicking on? Are they like overperforming? Are they underperforming? Should they be performing better? Is mid-table as good as it's going to get for them? You know, why are Benetton 7th and not 3rd or 4th?
I think they're away from and coming out of the Six Nations. If they have, if they lose some backs through just game management or injuries, I think March is a difficult month for them with those fixtures that Kayla mentioned in the previous pod. That's what I see happening.
Okay, right. Strap yourselves in, boys, because here comes mine. Okay, so I can see you laughing already, Caitlin. Right. So this looks very different to your tables, okay? Because I've got the balls to go out and say, do you know what? I think things are changing, and in a massive, massive way. I think we're in for like the most competitive, 8 months that we've ever seen. I think we're going to get to a situation at the end of the season where anyone in the 16 can make it to the top 8. Yeah, and I mean that genuinely, because there's been a lot of changes over the last couple of seasons. People coming, people going, and it's not, that traditional split. It's kind of got closer and closer and closer. Zebra have been a couple of points away from, taking some big scalps. Scarlets lost a couple of games last year that they really should have won. Cardiff last year lost about 6 or 7 games with 1 point or 1 score. We are not far away from turning a lot of tables. And I think it suits the Welsh sides that people are almost disrespecting us. People are kind of, don't worry, they're down the bottom there with Zebra. It gives us the space to come and absolutely bloody a couple of noses. So to go from the bottom upwards, Sharks are at the bottom simply because I don't think it last year was a blip. I think there's stuff wrong in the background. And I think you're going to get halfway through the season, be in the same place, change your management, and then go, oh, shit, yeah, no, we just can't play rugby very well. And then have to rebuild again. I think Zebra probably will kick on. I wanted to put them higher. I genuinely did, but I think it's just going to, who do you then put down in order to put Zebra up? Edinburgh in 14th. I'm sorry, Ben, but I think you just overshot yourself, and I think your coach is probably off at Christmas as well. If not, it'll be the end of the season. Lions, I'll be honest with you here, Al. Lions are in 13th purely to wind you up. Just
Lee has found his target market. He's just going to praise the Welsh and wind up the South Africans. Just be honest with us, we can see through this.
No, it's hard. It's hard. Anywhere in between, Lions and Cardiff, you can mix all of those sides together and.
I would like to say that out of all of those teams you've put above us, 9, 10, I don't think any of those from 9 through 12, I don't think their home record is as strong as the Lions is. I think the Lions
I don't think there's any reason to say Cardiff, Scarlets, Ospreys, and the Dragons
are going to be in the top 8.
No,
Sharks at the bottom.
All of them.
Allow me to justify this, okay? Because I think Connacht have overshot over the last couple of years, and as they start to kind of develop Irish players, the lack of depth in their squad might well show. I think Ulster is the one that I'm probably, is probably in the wrong place, but it won't take much to go, like I say, anywhere between 11th and 6th, in all honesty. Benetton, yeah, I think they've had a good couple of seasons, but I think the other sides are now, Welsh sides in particular, we've done the reset, we've sorted ourselves out, all the off-field stuff is sorted, and it's time to deliver on the field. And I think that's the key bit now, is that the squads have been there, and there's just been so much upheaval in the Welsh setup over the last kind of 2 or 3 seasons, that now we're in that place to go, right, there are no excuses now. And that's why I've put all of them up there. Dragons is probably the one that people are most kind of like, how can you put Dragons in 9th when they were 15th last year or whatever? But the reason is they've done the work. They've pulled a lot of academy boys through. They've kept a good, strong front 5 together. They've bolstered where they've needed to bolster. I think they're probably still waiting for somebody to put their hands up at 10 and say, I'm the guy that's going to control this side. But I think this will be the season where somebody comes through and does it. They've got quite a few boys that can come through and do it. They've got a decent front 15. The problem with the Dragons is, once you get to that 60-minute mark and you start making changes, is that then going to hold up? I think it's going to be enough to put them up around 9th. Ospreys fans will hate me because I'll put Scarlets above them, but the exciting rugby that is driving mauls is probably not going to be enough to win the games this season that it did last year. It's lovely when you do it, but we've seen other sides starting to develop a more expansive play, and that's the kind of rugby that's going to win games this season, which is why the Scarlets are above them. So Scarlets game against Saracens on the weekend, they crossed the line 7 times against Saracens. And they only scored 3 tries. They had 4 tries disallowed, but that running rugby, that exciting rugby is back at the Scarlets, and I think that's going to trump the strong drive in rugby that the Ospreys have been known for. Cardiff have brought in well over the off season, and I think they're the side that's probably going to benefit most from the stability that they've had. They've got stability within coaches. They've got stability off the field. They've got stability on the field. They're probably going to announce a new stadium about halfway through the season. They're going to redevelop the stadium that they've got. And there's a lot of positivity in Cardiff at the minute. Faletau is back from injury and talking about making sure he's on the Lions tour and all of this kind of stuff. So Cardiff are in a really good place head-wise. And I think that's going to count a lot for them on the pitch. Then we've got Glasgow in 5th, which, you can kind of chuck that one around, and they're not going to be far away. Much the same as they were last year. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th are all going to be really, really tight. I think the Bulls will be too strong. I've got Leinster in 3rd. I think Leinster have just lost a bit of an edge. I just do. I think the coaching changes that they had kind of last season haven't really worked. The idea of those coaching changes was to go up, not to stagnate and start to slip, and they have started to slip. So I would not be surprised to see Stormers and Munster go ahead of them. And I just think Munster got the bit between the teeth now. And I think Munster are looking to establish themselves as the number 1 Irish side. And to do that, you've got to go ahead of Leinster. And I think Munster will. I think this will be the season that Munster do it. That's not just because I want to be Caelan's best friend. It's a genuine.
It's fine.
I genuinely believe that Munster can make it the season where things start to change. So that, gentlemen, is why I have predicted the table thus. So
I do like your table. I do. Like it has Munster first, obviously I like that. It has Leinster beneath them. Obviously I like that.
I don't like it at all.
Ben doesn't like it, which is fair enough. He's got like Edinburgh are just one place above the zebra. Like that's you know what I mean? There's that. I mean, the 4 Cardiff teams in a row, all I can assume is that you thought 8th was last and you were kind of jumping over and back or something like that.
I think Lee had a turn when he was doing his predictions.
Yeah, like putting the Lions that far down and the Sharks. I mean, I respect it. I think that's the important thing here, Lee. We respect the game you're playing.
I think what I'm trying to get across with this, like an artist trying to explain his greatest creation, is that this season is going to be super competitive. I think you can just chuck all of those names into one of those little bingo baskets, roll it around and start picking them out. We're in a situation now where this is the most competitive league, and we have got 16 sides there that are super competitive. And you cannot take a side and say, do you know what, we'll put out a bit of a weaker side against them and still expect to win now. Yeah, that might have been the case a couple of seasons ago. That is not the case now. Dragons, Zebra, they are not weak sides now. They are sides that you need to compete against. You need to put your best teams out. And this will come down to injuries, depth of squad, and mentality. And those sides that get off to a good start will find themselves in the top half of the table and will be fighting tooth and nail to stay there. What I will say with the Welsh sides is if they do get off to a good start and we do find ourselves going up the table and up to the top half, we'll kill Europe. Europe doesn't ignore Europe. Yeah. Yeah. And if we find ourselves in the bottom half of the table coming into Christmas, it'll be right. Okay, it's time to focus on Europe again.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think there's only one more thing left to ask because we obviously have a table. We don't have predictions done. Lee, you've gone boldest, so it's only fair that you lead things off. Who is your URC champion come May?
Come May, I'm going to go Bulls. I think it's,
The Bulls do it on the road, though?
Yeah, I think that they can. I think that I'm going to go Bulls. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Yeah,
I'll stand back. I'll let Alan go next. Alan, who do you think?
I agree. I also think the Bulls are going to win. I placed the Bulls, I think, second, and I think they're going to. They've got a bit of pressure on them as well, just like Leinster. The expectation is for them to win, maybe not the double, but definitely to go ahead and win the URC. They're going to go all out for this one.
Ben?
Leinster will win this season, I think.
I'm going to go Leinster as well. And I'm not, I said Leinster last year and they didn't win it. So, there's that kind of an element. But I think Leinster just have to. Do you know what I mean? Like, they've made the signings. The IRFU have helped them. There's no doubt about that. We've talked about that. I know there's Welsh South African fans who don't want to hear me moan about that, so I'll leave it there. They have the squad. I think the big thing is fitness. I think they have the coaches. I think it's been grossly misinterpreted, Leinster standard of coaching. They do have the coaches there. There's a mental blip, but if they finish first, they have to get the job done. They just have to. And I think they will. I think they'll have to tap into that. Over here in Ireland, we hear a lot about Leinster's system and how, our Leinster system great, and they go from moment to moment. Isn't that great? They're not relying on passion. They're going to need it. They're going to need it. They're going to need to show everyone, put the 2 fingers up to everyone. I think they will. I think they'll find it. I think Shaq Niabar will help them find it. I think Leo Cullen will help them find it. They have to, though. And pressure is an amazing thing. It's not a foregone conclusion. What was it, 4 in a row? Leinster won at one stage in the 4-14 era. And now we're talking about, will they go 4 years without a URC trophy right off it? I think it's the storyline this year, I think, which is great.
So that is the end of our first pre-kickoff podcast, guys. That is,
well, it's not our first preview, is it?
It's not our first preview, but it's our first, but we haven't kicked off yet, so it's not it's our prediction pod. So it is going to be an absolutely fantastic season. You can feel that already. And I, for one, really looking forward to it. I can't wait for Friday kickoff and all the abuse that we're going to get online after when people see our predictions. But yeah, we're off and running, guys. We'll be back in next week. We will review our games of the week and we will pick 4 new games of the week for the week after. The season has started. It's going to be fantastic. I hope everyone has a really, really good season and enjoys it. So there's only left to say, enjoy your rugby. I shall see you next week, gents.
Good luck.
See you later.
That was the United Rugby Rewind. Please rate, review and share us on socials if you can. And join us next week for more of the same. And until then, enjoy your rugby. Join us on this week's United Rugby Rewind as we look ahead to the first week of the URC season. We pick our games of the week, make our predictions on who's going to come out on top. And then we take a look at the predictions of where everyone's going to finish at the end of the season. Trust me, you're going to want to watch that one. Let's get on with it.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.